بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. ما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The first verse I want to recite is Ali Imran chapter 3 verse 101. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Maulana Muhammad Ali has translated this as, O you who believe, keep your duty to Allah as it ought to be kept, and die not unless you are Muslim, unless you are Muslims. But generally, this verse is translated as, O you who believe, fear Allah as He should be feared, and die not unless you are Muslims. The next verse that I want to recite is chapter 4, An-Nisa, verse 142. إن المنافقين يخادعون الله وهو خادعهم إذا قاموا إلى الصلاة قاموا كسالى لا يراءون الناس ولا يذكرون الله إلا قليلا. The hypocrites seek to deceive Allah, and He will requite their deceit to them. And when they stand up for prayer, they stand up sluggishly. And they do it only to be seen of men and remember Allah only a little. And the next is chapter 9, verse 38. يا أيها الذين آمنوا ما لكم إذا قيل لكم منفروا في سبيل الله قاقلتم إلى الأرض أرضيتم بالحياة الدنيا من الآخرة فما متاع الحياة الدنيا في الآخرة إلا قليل. O you who believe, what excuse have you that when it is said to you, go forth in Allah's way, you should incline heavily to earth? Are you contented with this world's life instead of the hereafter? The provision of this world's life is but little as compared with the hereafter. As I said at the beginning, that generally non-Ahmadi translators translate the first verse, chapter 3, verse 101, as fear Allah. And the word they translate as fear is taqwa. Now you see, the thing is this, that if you look at the root of taqwa, which is wa, qaf, ya, then it gives you the significance of what it means. And its significance can be understood by a conversation between Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala and Ubay ibn Ka'b Raziyallahu Ta'ala. And they were discussing the concept of taqwa. And Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala asked Ubay, what is taqwa? And he replied, have you ever taken a thorny path? Hazrat Umar replied, yes, I have. Ubay then asked, so how did you travel along this thorny path? Hazrat Umar replied, I rolled up my garments and was cautious as to where I would tread to avoid being pricked by the thorns. So Ubay responded to this by saying, this is the one. Now you can see that nowhere in there is the concept or the word fear comes in. What comes in, that taqwa basically means is that it's something for our own benefit, that we take care not to hurt ourselves or damage ourselves. And when I say hurt ourselves or damage ourselves, I don't just mean financially, I don't just mean physically, but also spiritually. We protect ourselves in every way. You see, that the thing is this, that if you do the right thing, but you do it out of fear, then when that fear is not there, you are just going to do what you want. But if you do the right thing because you believe it to be the right thing, then whether you're being watched or not is going to be immaterial. And well, let me give you an example. You have a class of students. The teacher is sitting there. Would any of the students talk to each other? Will they stop doing the work and start playing games on their mobile phones? No, they wouldn't. They'll be silent, they'll be disciplined, they'll be concentrating on their work. Why? Because they're afraid that if they talk, if they make a noise, if they don't concentrate on the work, the teacher is going to give them detention. Or if you're in Pakistan, you'll get a severe caning. So they're doing it out of fear. So what will they do if the teacher leaves the classroom? They'll be banging desktops, screw up bits of paper and throw them at each other, make aeroplanes with the paper and throw them at each other, talk, shout, fight, and so on. Because they were doing the right thing out of fear and not out of conviction. And I've seen this happen. I was on a flight which landed in an Islamic country where there are strict rules about women should wear. And these two ladies, covered from head to foot, they got on the plane, and I was reading some newspaper and so on, and they were taking their seats which were in the next row. And suddenly I looked up, and those two ladies had disappeared. And there were two women standing there in the most modern Western dress, wearing mini skirts and so on and so forth. Why? Because they didn't believe that to dress in the way that they had was the right thing to do. They were afraid that if they went out dressed in the manner that they were on the plane, they would be arrested, they would be put in prison, and God knows what else. I don't know what the laws there are. So if you do things out of fear, then when fear is not there, then you're not going to pay the slightest attention to that. And this takes us to the mention of the hypocrites, which are mentioned in the next verse that I recited. The hypocrites seek to deceive Allah. And also to the verse that I recited next, O you who believe, what excuse do you have? That when it is said to you, go forth in Allah's way, you don't do it. You find excuses. And really, we say hypocrites, and this one is a hypocrite and that one is a hypocrite. It's really everyone who pays lip service to the teachings of Islam but doesn't actually carry them out. People say, if Islamic law is implemented in whatever country they come from, everything would be fine. And my question is, how will it be fine? They say, well, government should make a rule that everyone prays 5 times a day, and police should knock on doors and so on. Make sure that people pray. Get out of bed and go to the mosque or whatever. But my question to them is this. The creator of the universe has put it in his commandments that you do that. And you don't do it. But if a worldly government puts it in a worldly document that you must pray 5 times a day, then you will do it. And what will happen when these people go to another country? The police doesn't come round and knock on the door and say, have you prayed? If you haven't, the police gives you, 5 lashes or 10 lashes or whatever it is. Another example is the fact that people demand implementation of Islamic rules and laws. And in many countries, government has said, okay, everyone should pay zakat. Let's not discuss the fact that I believe zakat should be paid every month and not at the end of the year. So let's stick to the end of the year. But people find all manner of excuses not to pay zakat. And one trick they use is this. You have to hold spare assets or cash for a year before zakat becomes due. So what do? 2 days before the end of the year, they transfer all their money to the wife. And next year, 2 days before the end of the year, the wife transfers the money back to the husband. Well, I didn't hold it for a year, so no zakat is due. If it was due, I would pay. That is the exact definition of a hypocrite. That you're paying lip service. You don't keep money. I know people who don't keep money in bank accounts for exactly the same reason. Not just that they don't have to pay income tax, but also that they wouldn't have to pay zakat. And interestingly, in religious schools, there is a whole topic called hila. Hila means reasons or excuses that you can use to get out of having to obey Islamic law. A whole topic. And people go and they pay scholars money to learn these excuses so that they can get out of doing whatever it is, that the rule that they want to get around. And this is what God is saying. You see, when God says, "O you who believe, what excuse have you when it is said, you go forth in Allah's way?" People always take it to mean, well, that means you take the sword and you go and attack people and so on. No, it doesn't. If Allah meant that, He would have said that. When God says, go forth in Allah's way, but what God is saying is, obey all the commands that Allah has made it your duty to obey without making any excuse. And yet, as I said, in Islamic seminaries, there's a whole topic or module called hila. Hila means, well, basically, it's excuses, reasons you can advance so that you can argue that, well, I didn't have to pay zakat or whatever it might be that you don't want to do, and pretend that you have a reason and excuse for doing this. And this is why Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ali Sahib Rahmatullah has translated this verse, chapter 3, verse 101, where taqwa, word taqwa is used. He hasn't said, "Oh, you who believe, fear Allah." He has said, "Oh, you who believe, keep your duty to Allah as it ought to be kept." Which takes us to the last verse, "Oh, you who believe, what excuse have you that when it is said to you, go forth in Allah's way, you incline heavily to earth?" Let's go back to our example about zakat. If you give zakat, it elevates you spiritually. Materially, you're going to be poorer, but spiritually, you'll be elevated. But when you find excuses and reasons for not giving zakat, then, as the verse says, you incline heavily to earth, meaning you prefer this life to the hereafter. As I said in the lesson on the Quran that we do many times a week, that the idea of hereafter and doing the right thing for that is to teach you to make provision for the future. And as I said, if you want a comfortable retirement, you should pay into a pension or start saving money for your retirement when you're 20 years old. It takes half a century, 50 years, to save up enough so that when you retire, you're not begging for money. And how long are you going to be retired for? Retirement age in UK is 68, and most people are dead by the time they're 90. So you need to save for 50 years to make provision for 20 years. Now let's go to the hereafter now, which is the everlasting life. How long do you think you have to make provision for so that you're comfortable in the everlasting life? Just think of that. And all these healers and excuses and everything else, they take you away from making such provision. God says when the hour comes, or when you are going to be judged, humans will say, "We're very sorry, we made a mistake, give us a chance, give us a few more years, and then we'll do the right thing." And God says, "No, you won't. You'll be exactly the same." And that's the tragedy of humanity, that we never learn anything from the mistakes of other people and our own mistakes. We cannot see beyond our own noses. The concept of making provision for the future appears to have been lost somewhere along the line. And this is what God is saying: "Oh, you who believe, keep your duty to Allah as it ought to be kept. So make provision for your future, for your next life." People call it death. I say it's not death. It's transferring your presence from this physical presence to a different one. So, as the Quran says, please keep your duty as it ought to be kept. And a part of that duty is to pray for the whole of humanity. Today is Friday, so I request you that in your Friday prayers and other prayers, you pray for everyone. Our sister Mary in Holland, she underwent an operation last week. So she needs our prayers, and our brother Ali from Cuba, his family is going through sickness, so pray for them as well. And if you can help them, in other ways, that will be good as well. And everyone else, regardless of what their religion or caste or creed or nationality may be. Pray that Allah keeps the whole of humanity safe and sound and free from harm. بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم إنه تعالى جواد كريم ملك رؤوف رحيم. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون.
Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, ila salah, ila salah, qamatis salah, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah.
Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in Ihdinas siratal mustaqim صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون لا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها عين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم. Allahu Akbar. Allahu liman hamida. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانهر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah. Allahumma anta Rabbana atina hasanatan. Thank you for joining us for our Friday service. I hope you found it useful. And I hope if you have any ideas, you will let us know. Our normal broadcasts are from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. UK time 7 p.m. in Urdu and 7:40 in English. About lessons from the Holy Quran. If you can, please try and join us for those broadcasts as well. Assalamu alaikum. Khuda Hafiz. Goodbye.